guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be making a reaction video to Petsmarts pet care guides on leopard geckos and Syrian and dwarf hamsters. I currently own a leopard gecko named Toast and a Syrian hamster named Moose. I've owned multiple Syrian and dwarf hamsters in the past. I love hamsters, they're my favorite animal, my second favorite being leopard geckos. And so I'm really excited to get into this video, starting with the leopard gecko pet care guide from Petsmart, because I went through and just took notes on everything good and bad I was reading about, because I'm not about to sit here and read you the entire pamphlet, because that would take over an hour, I promise. Okay, so I'll be pointing out everything good and bad, and everything that is just like meh, I'm not going to talk about, because with them saying that the experience level needs to be beginner for a leopard gecko. That is so not true. Just like with hamsters, they are not beginner animals, they are high maintenance animals, not for little kids, and not for a beginner owner of whatever. Because leopard geckos are very picky eaters, and they can be easily hurt and stuff because they're very fragile and their skin is very thin. Basically all small animals are fragile because they are small animals, which is why small animals should never be for like little kids with the maturity level of a little kid. So I won't go on a rant about that. Say the correct time period for how long they can live, which is 15 to 20 years, and that they're from an arid environment, which means they need an overall drier cage with a low humidity, but they do need a human head to shed. And the thing that I didn't like was in this terrarium diagram, they basically said that they need a daytime, nighttime bulb, or bulbs. That is a big red flag. That's red flag number 2. The first one was the beginner experience level. Second one, we'll keep a little count somewhere here, for all these pet care guides, was the daytime, nighttime bulbs. Leopard geckos don't need a bulb at night, or a day bulb to a night bulb. They just need no lights at night. Because that would ruin their natural sleep cycle if they have a light, and people think that they can't see red or blue light, but they can see that it's a light. They may not be able to see the color, but they can see that there's a light on at nighttime, which throws off their entire sleep and life cycle basically, and it's just super unnatural and unhealthy way for them. So this is completely wrong. Is the letter G on this diagram says reptile carpet. That's probably the worst, or one of the worst substrates they could recommend in this diagram, because leopard geckos have been known to get their claws and teeth stuck on reptile carpet, and there's a lack of cleanliness with reptile carpet because it holds on to so much bacteria and it's so hard to clean, and it's such a hassle, and it doesn't even look good, and it's not very good for their joints either. The best thing you can do for a leopard gecko is give them a loose substrate that is safe and doesn't create impactions. Like calcium sand is horrible. That's not what I mean by a loose substrate. I mean eco-earth, I'm right now using that, or a mixture of a kids play sand with an organic topsoil. Those are much better than using tile or things like that, like reptile carpet. The next things that I saw that were questionable was on this side where it says how do I set up a leopard gecko terrarium, it says 1 to 2 female leopard geckos can be housed together in a 20-gallon terrarium. Who decided to write this down? I thought they were trying to improve their care, but then they go ahead and put 1 to 2 female leopard geckos can be housed together in a 20-gallon terrarium. No! Leopard geckos, regardless of gender, should not be ever housed together because they are very aggressive and they're not social and they're much happier on their own because it's more natural. And on top of that, they're saying in a 20-gallon terrarium, which for me personally, a 20-gallon long tank is the bare minimum for one leopard gecko at a younger age, and if you need to upgrade to a 40-gallon, upgrade to a 40-gallon. But for 2, which already isn't safe and shouldn't be done, and a bare minimum for 1, that's going to cause so much problematic troubles. On top of that, it says, if territorial behavior is observed, increase the size of a habitat. If you see territorial behavior, aka they're hurting each other, or one is getting more food than the other, and one is getting unhealthy and sickly, instead of separating them and doing the right thing, let's just get their cage a little bit bigger than a 20-gallon to a 40-gallon, which still probably won't fix anything because the only way that they could cohab would be in the actual wild with tons of miles of separation, which is the same argument in the same case. For dwarf hamsters to be housed together, it would need to be their natural environment, which is miles on miles of land where they can easily get away from each other. Next, they also said again, use reptile carpet or tile, 2 of the worst substrates. tile isn't the worst, but carpet, for me personally, my opinion on it, it's one of the worst things you could use. It also doesn't have good ammonia control, or whatever you want to call it. It will start to smell really bad really quick. And going along with what they said, remove droppings at least once a week. A leopard gecko, for perspective for you, leopard geckos poop every single day, and their poops smell horrible. They don't like with hamsters, they don't have any smell, right? Leopard gecko poop is disgusting with the amount of smell. I'm used to it now, but when I first got toast, I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to handle this stinky poop? The only way I can handle it is by changing it every single day, because if I didn't, the buildup would be insane and smell horrible. So imagine having 2 leopard geckos in a 20-gallon long, or 1 leopard gecko in a 10-gallon, which is not big enough in my opinion, and only cleaning all the droppings that are building up in that tiny enclosure once a week. That is going to smell disgusting, and the amount of bacteria on that reptile carpet is going to be out of this world. And then the next thing I did like was it then said leopard geckos' calcium absorption can benefit from supplementary 5.0 UVB lighting. This is something I stand by. It is a very true statement. I use, I think, the 5.0 UVB by Arcadia Shade Dweller light, but it helps them absorb their calcium. It's very good for them. It provides D3 in the lighting, and then you use no D3 calcium for them. That is correct, and that is very good that they know that. The next thing that I do like is that they're saying leopard geckos require a temperature gradient. This is true, and I agree with this statement. Though their little terrarium target range temperature on the other side with this chart is saying basically they shouldn't have that great of a temperature gradient, so I don't know. They also say to mist your gecko every other day. Don't directly mist your leopard gecko or their cage, because they need an arid environment and they won't usually enjoy that. And then they do say keep their hideout humid by misting sphagnum moss. I don't recommend sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss is something that can easily cause impaction for leopard geckos, but other than impaction, it actually is good for creating natural bacteria that are healthy for your gecko and keep your human hide humid. But to play it safe, I always recommend just using paper towels and changing them once a week so it doesn't create mildew. But paper towels are much safer, so I don't really like that. But you should mist their humid hide every single day. So do include pretty accurate what to feed your leopard gecko. They just include a selection of insects. I'm not going to get into the dusting of calcium powder because my schedule is kind of complicated and it's hurting my brain to read what they wrote down. So I'm just going to read what they said insects-wise that you can feed leopard geckos. So they say crickets, dubia roaches, hornworms, mealworms, and or superworms. So for crickets, I hate to deal with crickets. They make noises. Tanks and terrariums for leopard geckos aren't cricket-proof, so you will have lots of crickets escaping because they're tiny, and then they're making noises in your house. They also smell bad, and they're faster than any other insect I work with, so I don't use crickets because they're not necessary, though leopard geckos do like crickets. They also say dubia roaches, which are one of my favorite fast-moving insects for my leopard gecko because they're high in protein. They're the healthiest insect you could feed. Hornworms, I haven't yet fed my gecko hornworm because he's not big enough yet, but once a gecko is big enough, yes, those are good treats. Mealworms are another staple in my diet because they're easy to get and he loves them, and he'll eat a good amount, and they're pretty healthy. Superworms I also have in my diet, but he only eats those once a month, and he doesn't really like them because they're so big, so I have to cut them up for him, and you do have to cut the head off. So I also made some notes on the shopping checklist that they include on the back of the pamphlet. So they say 20-gallon terrarium or larger. I agree with that. For one gecko, 20 gallons is honestly not that bad. Screen lid, I agree with that. That is a necessity. UVB 5.0 bulb and fixture, that is perfect. I love that. They do need UVB. It's very healthy for them. They will be out in it. Daytime and nighttime basking bulbs, again, they put it on the checklist, and again, I have to disagree that you should never need all those daytime, nighttime basking bulbs. I mean, if you want to have a heat lamp to bring up your overall temperature in the colder months or something like that, along with a heat mat, that is fine. or if you have like a DP projector, those are great. Undertake heaters, I like them because they're easier to use with a 20-gallon long because it's not super tall and you can't use DP projectors, and then I put that with a heat lamp. That's good. Habitat thermometers and hydrometers, that's good. They again say reptile bedding / carpet. I'd say bedding, not carpet. Just some good things. Sphagnum moss for humidity hut. You could spend a lot less money and just use paper towels, and it's a lot more safer for your gecko. So I don't really agree with that. Water bowl and food bowl, that's fine. And yeah, and then they also include calcium powder and multivitamin powder, which is what I use. Just 2 of those, but without D3, and I like the ones I use, but that is honestly not the worst pamphlet I've read. They do have some things that are questionable here and there, but and on here everywhere, but there are some positives too, which is good. And they are going into quite a bit of detail for this leopard gecko, so someone knew something, so that's good. So that is all I'm going to say on the leopard gecko one, but let's react to the Syrian and dwarf hamster one. Okay, on to the Syrian and dwarf hamster care guide from Petsmart. I'm not looking forward to this because you know why. Deep down you know why. But let's get into it. I'm so scared. Okay. So, energetic and athletic hamster. Experience level. Beginner. Beginner, again, come on Petsmart. Small animals aren't beginner animals. There is no such thing as a beginner pet or animal. The only one that exists is the pet rock. We all know that. Come on now. Hamsters are nocturnal. Now I am just picking fights with Petsmart now because crepuscular, nocturnal, similar, but they are technically crepuscular. Look it up. I'll put a definition. It means they're most active at dawn and dusk. They obviously are also active in the middle of the night, but they're technically now classified as crepuscular. I didn't even check with the leopard gecko. They don't even say when they're awake or their behavior in leopard gecko. But leopard geckos are also crepuscular, but some people say they're on and off, like awake and asleep all the time. They're lazy little cuties. But anyways, the next thing I like is that they say hamsters are omnivores because they used to say hardcore herbivores, but really they're omnivores. They can eat tofu and plain chicken and all sorts of foods, insects, plants, seeds. They're very much like us in that kind of sense. They also say, while Syrian hamsters are sociable with humans, they are solitary animals and should live alone. Most dwarf hamsters, however, are social animals and can be housed with another of the same sex. Oh wow, look at that. They contradict themselves because they're like, oh, it's a completely different species, and they used to say dwarf hamsters could live together, but no, dwarf hamsters should never be kept together because they are a hamster, and all hamsters are solitary. So that's not true, and it will lead to the dwarf hamsters fighting, killing each other, drawing blood. Not a happy life for those hamsters, and then you'll end up having to split them up or they'll kill each other. So that's lovely. The next thing that I don't like is the hamster habitat that they of course have to show, and it looks just like the Ovo hamster trail, like hamster cage, which is not a good hamster cage. It's very like, ooh, it's trying to be like, I don't even know, futuristic. But this is what it looks like. I crossed it out because I'm so annoyed about it. That's too small, and then they have a Syrian hamster in it, like right there. That's very upsetting, not good at all. And there's like nothing in it. It's like a little prison cell. Oh my gosh. Okay, next we have how do you set up a hamster habitat. And they are correct when they say place the habitat in a low humidity area, that it should be in a temperature between 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Or direct sunlight, which is also correct, especially when there's a heat wave or anything, a hot time in summer when they could suffer heat stroke. It's really important to keep them out of direct sunlight, but also just in general. Say edible nests will encourage your pet to chew and should be cleaned regularly, but I don't really understand what they're talking about with edible nest, whether they mean just toilet paper with their scent on it, or if they mean those horrible, horrible hides that are just a mixture of sawdust and honey, and they can chew it, and then they ingest sawdust. I don't really know because they don't really explain themselves, but it's okay, it's fine. Next we have their feeding instructions, which I don't want to get into because it's so complicated and they're trying to make it look so simple. But basically they're saying 80% pelleted food, 15% vegetables, and 5% fruit and treats. But the reality is it shouldn't just be pelleted food, it should be a really high variety, high nutrition seed mix with like protein lab blocks like I use, like Missouri lab blocks plus Higgins seed mix. And if you don't do that, then it's going to be a low variety mix with not high nutrition. And they're mainly encouraging high amount of processed pellets like what they sell, which is not healthy for hamsters. They also say offer treats and fruits like oranges and blueberries. Oranges are a high citrus fruit, and it hasn't really been studied, but most people recommend against any citrus fruits for hamsters because high citrus is horrible and they can't process it and it's hard on their body. And like obviously low amounts of citrus is fine because you can't always avoid it like in baby foods and such because it's a preserver. However, citrus fruits are not safe for hamsters at all, and the fact that they are just like oranges and blueberries. Blueberries are safe, but oranges are completely not safe shows the lack of education on whoever wrote this, like for that part. Which is really annoying because it's not safe, and like if you did just a little bit of research, you'd know that that isn't safe. They also say a water bottle or a bowl of fresh, clean water every day. That is good. I like that because I like to give my hamster a water bottle and bowl, and I refresh both daily, so that's good. And now on to the shopping checklist. Just like last time, I'm trying to go fast because this is a long video as it is. But it says, what will I need for my hamster? And I will do this when I'm editing, but I'll put it on the screen about how big these cages are once you do the math. But they say dwarf hamsters need a habitat sized 12 by 12 by 12 inches or larger. And for Syrian hamsters, they say habitat size 20 by 10 by 12 inches or larger. At least they say or larger. However, I have a very strong gut feeling that for both hamster species will be too small. In general, both a dwarf hamster and a Syrian hamster should get the same big enough space. Just because dwarf hamsters are smaller than Syrian hamsters means literally nothing, because dwarf hamsters are known to be even faster and more high energy, and they make up for their lack of size by being very high energy and wanting to run everywhere, which means they both should get around the same big enough enclosure, which is 600 plus square inches of floor space. Currently in the US, it used to be 450, and before that it was 360, I believe, but 600 is much more adequate and bigger. Mine is like 850 something square inches of floor space, and even that I wish I could upgrade in the future when I have more resources and space. You can always upgrade and always benefit your care as you go along. Dwarf hamsters should never have a smaller cage just because they're a dwarf hamster is what I'm saying. And Syrian hamsters obviously are bigger animals, so they also need a big enough cage, and they can also be just as high energy. But it depends on the personality. Everything else is pretty bleh. They're not going into detail, but at least they don't put hamster ball. There's still questionable things in here that it's just like little things that hopefully they'll improve just like they improved the hamsters are omnivores over the years. I hope they improve the rest of it, including the diagram, to show maybe an actual adequate cage, so you're not pushing people who don't have any research under their belt to get one of your small, not well suited for a hamster cages at your store. But then again, that wouldn't profit the company of Petsmart and most chain pet stores, where they're just trying to make money off the consumer and not look out for the pets themselves that they're selling. They just want money in their pocket, so yeah. But that was the leopard gecko and the hamster pet care guides from Petsmart. I will do, again, as I said, the Pet Supplies Plus ones if you guys want to see them, but I read them. They're like not as bad as these ones. They have bad parts, but not like this. So these aren't that bad, but they aren't that good. They were bad at my expectation. So I guess that's good that they didn't go below my expectations, but then again, my expectations were pretty low. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, comment down below, and hit the subscribe button. I love all of you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope it was interesting and not too boring when I got caught up in reading off of the pet care guides, but these always bothered me, so I wanted to make a video addressing it. But I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next week's video. Bye, everyone. Which is really annoying that they said that. Anyways, intermediate, I don't know. They're like,